At age 17, I was so blown away that I put it on the cover of a fanzine that I was editing and publishing back then called Bizarre.
Wow.
Here's the issue from 1974, and it includes my interviews with Jane Seymour and some others that were involved in the film. So yeah, my obsession goes way back. Scary. 4 decades later, Richard Clemenson, the editor and publisher of Little Shop of Horrors, asked if I would spearhead an issue for his magazine devoted entirely to this movie. I couldn't resist the opportunity to dig much deeper into the development and production of this daring project. This movie was a seminal influence on an entire generation of writers and directors, myself included. For instance, immediately upon seeing the film, Anne Rice was directly inspired to write Interview with a Vampire, and she has contributed a foreword to the magazine that you will see on page 3 right here. I need an extra page. All right. Then Mark Gatiss, the co-creator and co-producer of Sherlock, who also plays Mycroft Holmes in that series, is another fan who contributed an essay called Queer Frankenstein, examining the gay subtext of the film, and that's found on pages 110 and 111. The great Oscar-nominated filmmaker Guillermo del Toro of Pan's Labyrinth fame recently put Frankenstein the True Story on his top 100 favorite films of all time list, calling it quirky, brilliant, and moving. So why is this film so often ignored and forgotten? It's my mission to rectify that injustice and to present for the very first time anywhere a detailed analysis of the making of this groundbreaking milestone, with over 20 brand new interviews of cast and crew, including Leonard Whiting, Jane Seymour, David McCallum, and co-writer Don Bachardy. Whether you are a fan or not, the adventure behind the creation of this astounding film, it is an epic unto itself. Prepare to catch your jaw before it drops to the floor. Now, I want to introduce our special guest panelists. And do you want to take your spot for a moment? We're going to be doing musical chairs today. First, we have Denise Millay, who is the widow of the great musician Gil Millay, who composed the brilliant orchestral score to Frankenstein the True Story. After a successful career as a jazz and electronic musician, Gil started writing music for television programs at Universal in the 1960s. He composed the memorable electronic theme to Rod Serling's The Night Gallery, and eventually got his first theatrical motion picture assignment composing the electronic score to The Andromeda Strain, for which he was nominated for a Golden Globe Award. Gil actually designed and built his own electronic instruments and recording studio for that groundbreaking endeavor. For Frankenstein the True Story, Denise accompanied Gil to London for the duration of composing and recording the score with the London Symphony Orchestra. So she has some very interesting stories she's going to share with us a little bit later. An essay in the magazine by James Anthony Phillips on Gil and his score to Frankenstein the True Story, including interview quotes with Denise, can be found on pages 80 to 81. Next, we have Julian Barnes, who appears in Frankenstein the True Story. Julian plays the wealthy son of a baronet who has his eyes on Prima, the character played by Jane Seymour. Little does he know that she is Frankenstein's female creature. Julian also starred in such films as Horror House with Frankie Avalon, The Ballad of Tam Lin with Ava Gardner, directed by Roddy McDowell, and more recently, Julian has appeared in Joe Johnston's The Rocketeer, Tim Burton's Mars Attacks, and Guillermo del Toro's Pacific Rim. And he is interviewed in the magazine on pages 42 to 44. And we also have with us the legendary artist, Bruce Timm. Thank you. he painted this gorgeous inside cover fold out of the Arctic climax and finale to the movie. And you'll see the original out in the gallery. And Bruce is an artist, character designer, animator, writer, producer, and actor. He's best known for his contributions building the modern DC Comics animated franchise known as the DC Animated Universe. Bruce co-created and co-produced the Emmy Award-winning Batman the Animated Series and its various spin-offs, Superman the Animated Series, and Static Shock. He was the sole creator and producer of the animated series Justice League and Green Lantern. He also produced the feature-length Batman Beyond Return of the Joker. Our fourth panelist today was going to be James Duke Mason, grandson of James Mason and son of Morgan Mason and Belinda Carlisle of the Go-Go's. Unfortunately, a family matter has arisen, and Duke wanted me to read this to you. Quote, "I'm so sorry, but I just got news that my grandfather on my mother's side has to go in for last-minute surgery Sunday afternoon in Bakersfield. He's going to be okay, but Mom and Dad are in Hong Kong, and my mom really wants me to be there with my grandmother while my grandfather is under anesthesia. Unfortunately, this means I won't be able to attend today's event. I'm so sorry, as I was really looking forward to it. I'm sure it's going to be fantastic. I really appreciate your understanding, as this is a tough situation I'm in. I'm super bummed that I can't be there. Please express my sincere apologies to everyone at the event and let them know how much I wish I could have been there to participate. I'll be with you in spirit. Best wishes, Duke." It's not life-threatening, so that's the good news. And be sure to read Duke's essay about his grandfather, James Mason, that appears on page 20 and 21. Now, before we talk to our panelists, and this may be your cue to take seats here if you want a better view of the screen, we're going to, let's watch a clip of the movie to get us in the mood. The sequence you're about to see is the creation of the creature, played by Michael Sarrazin, BAFTA Award nominee for They Shoot Horses, Don't They, in which he starred opposite Jane Fonda. Dr. Frankenstein is played by 22-year-old Leonard Whiting, star of Franco Zeffirelli's Romeo and Juliet, the youngest actor ever to play Romeo on screen and the youngest actor to ever play Dr. Frankenstein. Pay close attention to these four things. One, unlike typical Frankenstein laboratory sequences of dark and stormy nights with electricity drawn from lightning bolts, this scene is freshly staged in broad daylight using solar power collected in huge batteries. Renewable energy in 1973. Forward thinking, I'd say. This is the, number two, this is the largest Frankenstein laboratory set ever built, constructed at Pinewood Studios in London, designed by the great Oscar-winning production designer Wilfred Shingleton, whose credits include David Lean's Great Expectations, John Huston's The African Queen, Jack Clayton's The Innocents, and a personal favorite, Roman Polanski's The Fearless Vampire Killers. The music, number three, the music score by Gil Millay is wonderfully majestic at first and then becomes quiet and subtle and romantic when the creature comes face to face with his creator. And four, yes, I said romantic. There are many different levels of interpretation of the relationship between the creature and Dr. Frankenstein. Fatherly love, brotherly love, but the screenwriters, Christopher Isherwood and Don Bacardi, longtime gay partners, and the movie's gay producer, Hunt Stromberg Jr., intentionally saturated the film with gay subtext for those who cared to notice such things, me being one of them. Nevertheless, NBC executives, network censors, and many viewers at the time didn't notice anything provocative. But I'll let you be the judge. So, let's bring the lights down. Is there anybody? We have somebody running around to turn out the lights. Let's wait for that.
I like you just in one row. So privilege and thrill.
I'm so sorry to stop by, but I'm in the middle of doing my search on
Can you stay? No.
I cannot stay.
Okay.
I have to be back at 3 o'clock.
All right. Well, you're very sweet to come. Thank you so much.
Okay, sorry, everybody. I'm back to scrubbing my floor. It's way bigger than this sounds, believe me. It's not just that I have a choice of cleaning the house or coming here. It's a whole long story. I'll tell you later. Bye.
Bye.
Okay. Place here. So I think it's an incredibly moving sequence, and as I was sitting next to Denise, it was very emotional for her to hear this music for the first time in a very long time. And anyway, we get to join us again. Shortly after this scene, Dr. Frankenstein brings the creature to live with him in his apartment. And like Professor Henry Higgins in My Fair Lady, he teaches the creature to pass as a gentleman and presents him to high society on a date at the opera, Figaro. Their bromance is cut short, however, when the creature's skin begins to rot. He's no longer beautiful, and therein lies the tragedy, part Faustian, part Dorian Gray, and a sizable dose of reality between the writers themselves, who had a 30-year age difference between them and were adjusting to their own loss of youth. I was so impressed how poignantly the music underscores their relationship. And I think it's significant that just prior to Frankenstein the True Story, Gil Millet had composed the Emmy and Golden Globe winning TV movie That Certain Summer, considered the very first sympathetic portrayal of a gay couple on network television, played so memorably by Martin Sheen and Hal Holbrook. Gil's compassion and sensitivity in writing the scores to both of these films is extraordinary. So Denise, let's go back and tell us what you recall about Gil getting involved in this movie. How did he get the job?
Well, I don't know that Sid Sheinberg, who was head of television at the time,
Head of television at Universal.
Yes, I don't think he particularly wanted Gil, thought about him. And they wanted Maurice Shaw or Michel Legrand. And neither of them wanted to do television in those days. And I guess Gil was the other choice. The head of production was a man named George Santoro, and he really plugged to get Gil to do the score. And Hunt, I didn't think, was familiar with Gil's music, but he was open to George Santoro's suggestion, and I guess he got approval from Sid Sheinberg, so that's
Yes.
how it all happened.
And this, and even though you and Gil lived here in Los Angeles, the score had to be recorded in England because they were trying to qualify the film for the ED levy, which meant that a lot of the vast majority of the employees on the film had to be British.
Yeah.
So the orchestra and everything needed to be done in England.
Yes.
So,
Right.
so when you and Gil immediately came over to England and he started working on the score there, is my
That's right.
understanding. And then there was one story that I thought was interesting where you told me that Hunt Stromberg Jr., the producer of the movie, wanted to hear a sample of what Gil was up to.
That's right.
So tell us about that.
Yes, actually he left Gil alone, which was great, because Gil was one of those people who didn't like to be pressured and give samples of his music, like a lot of producers or directors wanted to hear something beforehand. And then one day I said, gee, I'd like to hear something that you've written. And Gil wrote what I thought was one of the most beautiful themes for the movie, and that was the creation of Prima, where he used the harp. And I don't know if you're going to show that.
That's our
portion of
next
the
clue.
movie.
You led into it beautifully, darling.
And Hunt was sold on it, he just loved it. But I have to say that Hunt basically left Gil alone. After all, you hire a person for the talents that they have. And you don't have to prove yourself, and Hunt gave, Gil that credit. He hired him and expected him to do the best that he could.
Yes. Oh, that's great. Now, some of you may be surprised to learn that James Mason's character in the movie was directly based on Dr. Praetorius from Bride of Frankenstein, originally played by Ernest Thesiger and considered one of the very first gay characters in mainstream cinema. Early drafts of the screenplay to Frankenstein the True Story named the character Dr. Pretorius. Isherwood and Riccardi eventually changed it to Dr. Polidori, named after the real-life Dr. John Polidori, Lord Byron's physician and companion, who wrote the very first vampire novel, Vampire. Byron teasingly called him Polly Dolly, and the writers utilized that castrating nickname throughout the film as well. I think that's really why they changed it to Pretorius. They were so excited to use that nickname. Just like in Bride of Frankenstein, Dr. Polidori blackmails Dr. Frankenstein into helping him create a better human specimen, one that wouldn't rot, a perfect female creature. Polidori's hands have been destroyed. He wears black gloves to hide his affliction, and he needs Dr. Frankenstein's steady surgeon hands to complete the task. The scene you're about to see is the creation of Prima, the female creature played by Jane Seymour, immediately after she finished shooting the James Bond movie Live and Let Die. As you watch this, I want you to notice three things. Number one, this sequence is driven by another brilliant score cue by Gil Millet. Once the fire is extinguished, listen for that breathtakingly haunting Prima's theme that Denise talked about that concludes the creation sequence. I'll signal the moment it starts. I'll raise my hand. For the second creation sequence in the movie, the filmmakers went to great lengths to make it different from the first. You will notice that Dr. Polidori and his two Chinese assistants have redecorated Frankenstein's laboratory with Asian furnishings and decor, a cross between Dr. No and Dr. Fu Manchu. And three, unlike the solar power that Dr. Frankenstein used to breathe life into the male creature, Dr. Polidori believes that chemicals are the secret elixir of life. You may think the colorful globs of undulating goop look a bit like a lava lamp, and you would be right. But hey, it was 1973, the height of psychedelia, so just go with it. Trust me, it was really groovy at the time. Okay. All right, let's bring down the lights and we'll go to clip number 2. Prima may be beautiful on the outside, but her soul is wicked. And all this comes to a head at her debutante ball. Our next clip. Julian Barnes appears in this sequence. So, I have a couple of questions for you, Mr. Barnes. Tell us, how did you come about getting this part?
Sam, it was that long ago. I can't, other than I was with William Morris at the time, being one of the top agents there and now. I don't remember the specifics except meeting Jack Smythe specifically. I believe I'd met Hans Stromberg socially, but beyond that, it's all a bit too long ago.
Yes. Now, when we spoke, you kept a diary that you were able to look up actual dates of things. And
I remember how thrilled you were about that.
Oh my God, it was fantastic for my timeline. So, you actually were required for some rehearsal for this.
Yes.
And tell us about that.
For the ballroom scene and Dancing with Jane, yes, there were dance rehearsals at the studio and in that astonishing set, as was everything else with regards to the production values, which you touched on. But yes, I mean, it was just a wonderful experience. I mean, I don't. It was not a huge role, but I certainly enjoyed what I did. And as I think I told you, one of the more memorable moments was James Mason. May I tell that story?
Please.
It was right at the height of the Watergate scandal. And between setups in the ballroom sequence, there'd be this circle of astonishing talent, all listening to James Mason read from, as I recall, the Herald Tribune, but it might have been the Times, every day between takes. He would read the update of the Watergate scandal to the cast who were present in his inimitable voice. Yeah, it was just one of those memories that will stay with me forever.
I can see why.
Clearly has.
Yes. And interestingly enough, I've talked to a number of people who worked on the film who began to think that maybe he was basing a little bit of his performance of Dr. Polidori on Richard Nixon. So there is a connection. All right. So in the clip, you will see Julian cut in and dance with Prima, and you deliver one of my favorite lines in the movie. Do you remember it?
Nope.
I love your cool hands. They're cool, all right. Prima's one of the living dead. The producer, Hunt Stromberg Jr., cast the great character actress Margaret Leighton as the Dowager Countess Duval, who meets the creature at the opera when he's beautiful. It was just a brief guest cameo appearance in part 1, but Stromberg liked her so much he decided that she should reappear in part 2. Unfortunately, by then there was a writer's strike that prevented Isherwood and McCarty to work on revisions, so Stromberg wrote a new little bit himself in which the Countess shows up at the party dressed as Little Bo Peep, under the mistaken impression it's a masquerade ball. And ever the gentleman, Julian, tries to reassure her that no one will notice. So,
May I just add a little bit to that?
Please.
That entrance, Margaret Leighton, God bless her, a legend, was somewhat frail. And so I took it upon myself to just make sure, and I'm quite good at this in both stage and screen, being a rock. If somebody's nervous or unhappy with whatever situation arises, in some of the jobs I've done, I just try to be there for them as much as I can. And that was one of my chief concerns with having Margaret Leighton on my arm. And of course, Michael Welding, as was on the picture, and he would always come over and say,
and they were married at the time.
"Are you all right, dear?" Make sure that she was doing okay.
Yes.
Just a nice, touching moment.
No, that's fantastic. I love her so much. I believe that Stromberg not only wanted to expand Margaret Leighton's role, he wanted to expand yours too. And I think that's why he put the two of you together in that moment. Did you get that impression that he had a little bit of a crush on you, Julian?
You'll see a very different Julian Barnes in a few minutes. I was unaware.
All right, great. Let's watch the clip. A decapitation in prime time on network television in 1973. It was absolutely shocking, an outrage, and it sparked debate among moralists, and it was just about the coolest thing I'd ever seen. All right. Now, Bruce, you are mainly known for your caricature style artwork, but for Frankenstein the True Story, you decided to go in an entirely different direction, and you want to tell us about that.
Yeah, I've been doing stuff for Dick Clemenson's magazine for, it's been 15 years maybe, and he'll just email me and say, oh yeah, we're doing an issue on on this particular movie or whatever, and I'll just go, oh yeah, I like that movie, I can do something with that. And in the past, it's always been, like you said, usually like kind of caricatures or portraits of the cast. And when I sat down to actually do something for this issue, it just I wasn't feeling it. And then also I kind of had the feeling that a lot of the other artists that it contacted would be doing like portraits of the cast, and that turned out to be true. And so then I thought, okay, well, what am I going to do? And the deadline's approaching, and it's it's a fold out. It's a widescreen kind of frame thing rather than a regular upright rectangle. It's a sideways rectangle, horizontal. And I was like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And then I was watching the movie again on YouTube, and as we got to that sequence in the movie, it reminded me that even when I was a kid, when I first saw the movie, when it first aired in '73, I remember thinking that the whole film had like this amazing epic feel to it, much unlike most of the TV productions at the time. It felt really big and like a movie. So much so that when I think of the movie, I tend to think of it in terms of it being like a widescreen picture. And when I get to that sequence in particular at the Arctic, I'm momentarily startled that the image is square, that it's in a TV ratio rather than 16:9 widescreen. And so that kind of gave me the idea. I said, oh, I've got this widescreen frame to draw in, and I've always seen this image in my head as being widescreen, so I'll do a version of that, and that's what I ended up doing.
You did a great job.
Thank you.
So, it's very beautiful. So, I'd like to open it up now to the audience for questions, and raise your hand, and we'll be happy to try to answer any questions you might have. Yes?
I wanted to mention that I believe it was framed for a European theatrical release. So if you care to watch it blown up to 16:9, as I have on your set, it looks beautiful. All the framings are quite nice because they were planning that it might be released that way.
It was released in Europe theatrically. They actually, in order to qualify for the E.D. levy in England, required a theatrical release, so that was one of the main reasons. Unfortunately, it was shown over 2 nights, 4 hours, 2 hours one night, 2 hours the other night. If you took away all the commercials, the running time is around 3 hours. The theatrical release is 2 hours, so a third of the movie is just completely butchered and cut out of it. And it's just, in my opinion, it's absolutely unwatchable. So luckily it has finally, for the longest time, it was only available on VHS in the 2-hour theatrical version, but it now is available through Universal DVD in the full 3-hour version. So we can finally see the whole thing again. So yeah, that's very, very tricky. Yes, Brent?
Do they have any plans to do the Blu-ray with the introductions?
Yes, well, one of the scenes that was cut out there was an opening. If you recall in Bride of Frankenstein, Elsa Lanchester played Mary Shelley, and they had Lord Byron and Percy Bysshe Shelley. In real life, they were all vacationing in Switzerland, and they challenged each other to write ghost stories, and Mary Shelley wrote Frankenstein, and Polidori wrote Vampire, and so they were kind of staging a little, in the beginning of Bride of Frankenstein, basically they're saying, Mary, tell us what happened beyond the book, and she goes on to tell them about creating the bride, because actually in the book, they discuss creating a female creature, but they actually don't go through with it. So in this film, Hans Stromberg Jr. Basically instigated the whole project, and when he hired Riccardi and Isherwood to do the script, he told them they basically want to combine James Whale's Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein into one magnum opus and use that as sort of the basis, and that's why Dr. Pretorius was in the script, and they also wanted to have a prologue with Mary Shelley and Lord Byron and Polidori, and so the actors in the film are playing those characters. The woman you saw who was pregnant in the ballroom scene, that's Elizabeth Frankenstein, and Dr. Frankenstein came over and talked to her briefly, and she was looking very upset. She played Mary Shelley. David McCallum played Lord Byron, and Leonard Whiting, Dr. Frankenstein, played Percy Bysshe Shelley, and James Mason played Polidori. And you'll see pictures in the magazine of that sequence in broad daylight. They're having a picnic by a lake, which is supposed to be Lake Geneva in Switzerland. And it was about a 7-minute sequence that opened the picture, and she starts to tell the story, and their characters sort of morph and start to assume the characters of the characters that are in the film itself. And it segues into Dr. Frankenstein's brother, William, falling out of a rowboat and in the lake and drowning. And so that's the way the picture now opens, is the drowning of the brother. And it's the editing is a little abrupt because it wasn't planned to really be the opening that way. That sequence exists somewhere, I hope. It's never been seen, but it must be buried in the Universal Vault somewhere. My dream is to someday they will make a concerted effort to find that and restore that, at least as an extra or something. There is, as far as I understand, there's no immediate plans for a Blu-ray. I'm hoping this magazine might spur some interest. There has been a Blu-ray that was released in Japan. It looks to me like, I have it, and it looks to me like it's a DVD quality master that they took it from. So it's really not much, it's really no better than what we've already seen. What it does have, that the Universal DVD, the domestic Universal DVD does not have, when it originally aired, at the end of part 1, they show previews for part 2, and at the beginning of part 2, they show a recap of part 1. Well, they included that, which is kind of cool to actually see all of what was presented to the public. My opinion, why they cut out that prologue with Mary Shelley, and having directed a lot of movies for commercial television, the golden rule is that you got to grab your audience by the first commercial break. Where as soon as that commercial hits, people are going to channel surf, and if they find something more interesting, they're going to stick with it. And I think that the executives at NBC felt like 7 minutes of Mary Shelley, and people who tuned in to see a Frankenstein movie may not go over that well in Middle America. So I think that, I'm guessing, but that's, I think, a reasonable assumption. What they replaced it with, by taking that out, I mean, originally, the top billed star is James Mason. And originally, he would have been in the very opening scene as Polidori by Lake Geneva. By taking that out, his character now was not going to appear for the first time in the movie for a good 45 minutes or more. So they decided to do an introduction with James Mason as himself, where he is walking through the cemetery and showing us the gravestone of Mary Shelley and explaining about the history, and then showing a lot of really enticing clips of the film and a lot of spoilers.
We didn't care about stuff like that back then. We didn't care.
We didn't care.
Spoilers. It was like, no, there's a crawling hand.
That's right. I know. I mean, it's like,
that.
it's like, whoa, this is going to be so incredible. So after, there's no way that viewers would not have stuck with it, seeing that montage of clips,
Yeah,
because
exactly.
it was really mind-blowing.
Yes.
There was one little problem with that introduction. Some of you probably know. James Mason is walking through the cemetery in London, shows us this gravestone of Mary Shelley. It's not really Mary Shelley's gravestone. It was a fabricated tombstone, and it looks nothing like Mary Shelley's gravestone. And in the magazine, there are pictures of the fake one and the real one for you to compare. So I'm not quite sure what madness prompted that, but maybe at the last second their location agreement for the real cemetery fell through and they had James Mason for a day. I don't know, but something crazy happened there. But most people would not know. But now we do. Yes, sir.
Question. Speaking of the crawling hand,
Yes.
do you have any stories to share about that? Like who played the crawling hand and what did
I
they
do.
Great.
I did a lot of research about the crawling hand. There's in the beginning of the film, the David McCallum character, who's a doctor, he ends up, there's an accident, and this guy needs to have his arm amputated. And so he amputates the arm, and they preserve this arm. Okay, so I talked to the people who actually created the mechanics for the inside and everything else. You read all about that in the magazine, and they can explain it way better than I could. But there is one moment where they're preserving the arm, and the arm comes to life and grabs the hand of Leonard Whiting. and David McCallum has to kind of like pull it off. And of course it's framed so that a real person's arm can stick into the frame and do the actual grabbing. Well, the great makeup artist Roy Ashton, that was his real arm, and he really did act out that moment. And he cast his own arm for the mold to make the fake arm. And so he had shaved all of the hair off of his arm, and so it was going to be a that's how that all came about. He did the exterior of the arm, the skin and everything for the fake arm, and then Colin Childers, who was in the effects department, did all of the mechanics inside. And he told me a funny story where it was so heavy on the floor, and the hand is supposed to like crawl along the floor, and when they first did it, the fingers are just scratching on the floor. They can't pull it along because it's too heavy. So they put tiny little pins in the ends of the fingers so they could grip like ice picks, so it could actually get traction, and it really did pull it along. Yes.
Could you talk about the development of the makeup for the monster?
Yes. There's a lot of misinformation all over the internet that Roy Ashton, who also did a billion Hammer films, he's one of the great makeup artists of all time, that he does Sarrazin's makeup, and it's actually not true. He was a makeup artist on the film and did a lot of the special effects things, but and he did the makeup for most of all of the supporting actors. But the actual makeup for Sarrazin's creature makeup was done by Harry Frampton, who was an amazing makeup artist. He did Kind Hearts and Cornets, and he did, his resume is a mile long. But he was the head of the makeup department, and he basically focused all of his work on the Sarrazin progression. And there were 6 different stages of the makeup. I know that Brent in particular was very disappointed that we couldn't get more pictures of things behind the scenes of the makeup being applied, and believe me, I have searched the world over trying to find that, and if we ever do, we'll do a follow-up in Little Shop of Horrors. For some reason, they must have had an embargo against showing that stuff. I don't know why, because I've certainly found a lot of material, and there's just nothing in the makeup department, no photos at all that I've found. But Roy Ashton, the Hammer film artist, he did do the original cast of Sarrazin's face so that Frampton would have that to mold the appliances to. And so that's why there's some confusion. And you'll see a picture of that actual head mold in the magazine. And we have pictures of the 2 makeup artists together, but that's all. I mean, and all the behind the scenes photos, there's nothing. It's just crazy. Very disappointing. Yes.
Now, is the music available on CD?
I'm so glad you brought that up. There it is not, and it's very, very, very frustrating that after all these years, this incredible score that I think is Gil Millet's, I think it's his best score, and that it has not actually officially come out on CD. Don't like to talk about this, but there is some bootlegs that have floated around over the years, but the quality of them are not very good. And it is so beyond high time that this score is released. And Denise, you have the masters all perfectly preserved, I
Well,
understand.
they're reel to reel.
Use your microphone, but tell us.
Oh, I'm sorry. They're reel to reel, and I don't know if Gil really had them put to digital. I'll have to take a look and see.
Yeah.
I think he did, but.
Yeah, but I'm hoping that the magazine will spur interest in those realms as well. Anybody who has any contact with soundtrack record labels, please put in a good word, and because we would love for that to happen.
Definitely.
Yeah, and one of the sad things is that a lot of people are putting these scores on their own labels.
Yes.
And
Yeah, these bootleg labels, and the
Yeah.
quality's not there, and
exactly.
yes.
Can you talk about the wardrobe, who created a lot of the costuming? Because there's a lot of extensive costuming, considering there's a massive amount of time period going on here.
Yes. Elsa Fennell was the costume designer for the film. She's legendary. If you look her up on IMDb, you'll see a trillion credits. Her brother was Albert Fennell, who co-produced The Avengers with Brian Clemens and was one of the producers of The Innocents, the Jack Clayton film, and she had another brother who was a bigwig at Pinewood Studios, and I thought she did a magnificent job, and it was certainly a very large undertaking for sure, with all these characters and extras and everything else.
That whole ballroom sequence is amazing.
Yes. Yeah.
How long did it take to shoot the ballroom sequence since there's so much going on in it?
The ballroom was shot in 5 days, and there, you'll read in the magazine that there was a little problem that arose. Michael Sarrazin suddenly disappeared, and he at that time was dating Jacqueline Bisset, and he found out that she was having an affair with John Peters in France, and she left and went to take care of that situation. Didn't tell anybody, and so they actually started shooting the ballroom scene. I mean, granted, he doesn't actually come in until much later, but usually when we're shooting, you shoot a lot of things from different angles, and so it was very tricky. They had to shoot everything up to the point of his arrival as its own thing, and then wait for him to return to finish out the scene.
How many
Yes.
drafts did the script go through?
There are many drafts, and they are available to be read. The Christopher Isherwood papers are housed at the Huntington Library in San Marino. Is that right?
Yeah.
San Marino. And there are several drafts there. Also in the Hunt Stromberg papers at the USC Library, Cinematic Arts Library, there's also a bunch of drafts there. I read every one of them, and it's quite interesting to see the progression. They went to, in the beginning, it was going to be this TV movie for 4 hours. Then they decided it was possibly going to be a theatrical film. You can't imagine the A-list directors and people who were scrambling to try to do this. Francis Ford Coppola wanted to direct it. John Boorman wrote a letter to the heads of Universal begging to do this movie, but only as a theatrical film. And he wanted John Boyd to play Dr. Frankenstein, and they had just finished shooting Deliverance.
Okay.
And but ultimately, so at a certain point, they decided maybe we are going to do this theatrical, and they had them trim the script down to more of a maybe 2 hours and 20-minute running time instead of 3 hours. And so you see different lengths of the script, but then it goes back up to, the full 3-hour version. But you'll read all about, the people who were involved in this. It's a who's who. You will not believe it. Marlon Brando was going to play Polidori at one point. Richard Burton, Elizabeth Taylor, Alfred Hitchcock recommended people for the crew, and Steven Spielberg was considered, and it just goes on and on. It's crazy. It's so interesting to see the permutations of the development of it. And that's why I say, whether you care a hoot about the movie or not, just this whole journey of getting there is unbelievable.
Yeah, I think as a 9-year-old, one of the many reasons that the film made such an impression on me was the level of gore, which I had never seen before on television. How did they get away with it?
Well, how did they get away with any of this? I mean, it's amazing to me that this film got made, that it aired without more censorship. It's incredible. I wish I could take all of you with me to New York, but there's going to be a screening of the film on Tuesday the 27th in New York at the Quad Cinema. And there's an archivist from Montreal named Philippe Spirel, and he writes about this in the magazine. He has a whole essay about this. And he has curated a print of the film where it's the whole 3-hour version, but he has also incorporated extra seconds of gore that appeared in the shorter theatrical version. Like when you see and pull the head off, you're gonna actually see the bottom of the neck with entrails hanging out and that kind of thing. So this screening in New York will be the first time it's ever been seen this much intact. I mean, we don't have Mary Shelley prologue, but at least it's got a little bit of extra that we're not used to seeing. Did I answer the question fully? Okay. Dave Dakota, oh my God, legendary director with us.
I saw the movie, original broadcast, and I will never forget it. Amazing as a kid, overwhelmed. Flash forward all these years later, I completely forgot that Jack Smite directed this movie.
Yes.
Do you cover in the magazine? Why him?
Yes, Jack Smite. Well, he, first of all, I mean, they went through all the, considering all of these really major directors, but they were also very afraid. I mean, when Francis Ford Coppola was campaigning to direct this movie, he had finished shooting The Godfather, but it hadn't come out yet. And no one knew whether it was going to be a hit. In fact, there was a lot of talk in Hollywood that it was a mess and that Brando had to rely on cue cards, and so no one knew it was going to be a hit. And it took a number of months before it finally came out. And so, as far as Universal was concerned, Francis Ford Coppola, he's had some movies that didn't do very well. Finian's Rainbow, etc. He hasn't really had a big track record. And he went $1 million over budget on The Godfather, and they were being very pragmatic money-wise. They were very afraid that this was going to get out of hand. And so, long story short, because there are many other directors that were considered, they ended up going with a much more pragmatic choice. And Jack Smite was on contract with Universal, and he had done a number of big theatrical films in the 60s, Harper with Paul Newman, The Illustrated Man with Rod Steiger, and many others. But he had signed a contract with Universal in 1969, this was 73, and he had done literally 10 TV movies in a row, and had brought them all in on schedule and on budget, and they had great confidence in him to be able to take on this huge enterprise and not go over budget and let it get out of hand. And then on the basis of this, he sort of was springboarded back into theatrical films, and Universal gave him Midway and Airport 75. But he did get back into theatrical because of this movie.
Smite also, when I was in high school, I used to talk to Jack Smite.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
When I was in high school in the 80s, I used to talk to Jack Smite because he
Wow.
was one of my favorite directors, and I would hunt down my favorite directors and just call them. So I went to the Directors Guild at the time. He was also extremely sensitive to gay-themed material, subtextual material, and he had done No Way to Treat a Lady, Rabbit Run, The Traveling Executioner, a series of films where he made sure that there was a very liberal gay subtext.
Yes.
When this was offered to him, he said he was drooling across his desk, afraid that he would get the call that he would be confirmed as the director, because the script, he said, was just remarkable, and just he said he really was praying for that job, and when he got it, he said.
So that's fascinating. I don't know if everyone could hear it, but he was talking about how the director Jack Smite had dealt with gay subtext in some of his other earlier films, and had been very sensitive to that. I did interview Jack's son, Alex Smite, and I convinced Alec to do an essay in the magazine that he would read. And at the time, Alec was 14 years old, and he moved with Jack Smite and his mother to London for 9 months for the duration of the production, for prep and shooting and editing. And every day after school, he would go to the set and visit, and so he had some incredible memories of that whole process, and really fell in love with the whole idea of being a director while on that film. And now he's the 3-time Emmy-nominated director of CSI and Criminal Minds, and he's a very, very big television director. He's actually going to be with us on the panel in New York for the screening there. He's bringing his wife and kids, and they're all really excited to see the film again. Anybody else? Do we have any questions about the score or for Julian? We don't have to be on subject. Yes?
So, the production took 9 months.
Well, it was shot from, the shooting was from March 15th to first week of July. It was, I forget how many weeks that is. I think it's 16, 17 weeks, something like that.
And how long did it take to actually create the score?
Well, as best I can figure out from the timeline that we have been able to put together, it was about 4 to 6 weeks,
Yeah, that's right.
somewhere in there.
About 4 to 6, yeah.
Yeah, but they all went to England right at the beginning of '73, right in January, right after the New Year, and this was aired on November 30th and December 1st of
Wow.
'73.
Wow,
So it
that's
was all
fast.
very quick. Jane Seymour was finishing Live and Let Die at Pinewood Studios, and this is a funny story. Hans Stromberg Jr. spotted her, and he just was mesmerized and thought that she would be the perfect actress for Prima. And so he sent his production manager over to their table at the commissary at Pinewood, and Harry Saltzman, one of the big Bond producers back then, before he and Cubby Broccoli split apart, the production manager went over and asked Harry if they could meet Jane Seymour, and Harry Saltzman said, "Get away from me! No, you can't have my star. Don't even think about it." Well, when the production manager went back and told Hans Stromberg this, it made him all the more rabid to meet her. So he was like camping out at this commissary every day, and finally, one day she was dining with Roger Moore and some of the other people, but not Bulldog Harry Saltzman. So he goes over to the table, and he already knew Roger Moore previously. He knew everybody in the world. His dad was a big mogul at MGM. And he said, "You know what? If we have a minute, this is. I should read it verbatim and not try to paraphrase it." Okay, so so Hans Stromberg walked over to the 007 table and reintroduced himself to Roger Moore. They'd met socially on previous occasions, and explained he was producing Dr. Frankenstein at Pinewood. "The script is written by Christopher Isherwood," Stromberg name-dropped, trying to impress the table. "Oh yes," Roger Moore replied with a sly grin. "He wrote a picture I did at MGM called Diane. It bombed so badly the studio dropped me. I hope you'll have better luck with this one." To which Hans Stromberg said, "Well, we have better actors, so that's a start." It got a rise out of Roger Moore, though. And then Stromberg said, "While we're on the subject, I wonder if you would do me the honor of introducing me to your enchanting co-star." "Why, of course, my good fellow," Moore said, turning to the ravishing 22-year-old actress seated beside him with hair down to her waist. "This is Jane Seymour, and mark my words, she's going to be a major star." Seymour smiled and said, "A pleasure to meet you, Mr. Stromberg." "The pleasure is all mine," Stromberg replied. "I understand that your picture wraps just before my picture starts, which is extremely fortuitous, don't you think?" "Why is that?" the actress asked. "Because, Miss Seymour, you're going to be in my picture," Stromberg announced with utter confidence. Seymour laughed. "You can't be serious." I'm dead serious, Strawberry replied. I want you to play not one but two parts, an innocent farm girl named Agatha who dies in an accident and is brought back to life as the evil female creature named Prima. Not sure what to make of this peculiar man, Seymour politely said, I look forward to reading the script. Well, that's not necessary, he replied. I want your commitment right here and now before I return to my table for dessert. Taken aback, Seymour asked, have you ever seen me act? And Stromberg said, Roger thinks you're going to be a major star, that's all I need to know. And did I mention that your co-stars will be James Mason, Michael Sarrazin, Leonard Whiting, and David McCallum? Seymour's jaw dropped. Well, then how can I say no? You can't. I'll have my people talk to your people, and we'll see you at the read-through. With that, Stromberg turned on his heel and marched back to his table, blaze of glory. I don't want this to go on forever, but there's another really fascinating story about this. In Live and Let Die, one of Jane's co-stars was Jeffrey Holder, the enormously tall he's not African American, he's a Trinidadian American actor who was the Cola Nut guy in the 7-Up commercials, but he was a major Broadway director. He directed the original Liz and Tony Award winner. He's incredible. But he also choreographed the dancing in Live and Let Die, all the voodoo cult stuff and everything. And he had discovered, while working with Jane Seymour, that she was a trained dancer. And we talked about this when the clip was playing. And so when he ran into he had heard that Jane had been cast in the movie, and he ran into Hunt Stromberg at the commissary at Pinewood and said, oh, I understand that Jane's going to be doing your film. That's wonderful. I hope you know that she's a trained dancer. And Hunt said, actually, I did not know that. And he said, well, she tells me that there's going to be a big scene in a ballroom where there's dancing going on. Well, if you read the original script, which, by the way, was published as a paperback, it's very unusual for a TV movie. You got one right there. You will read that they're just couples dancing, and there's conversations, and then the preacher comes in and interrupts basically a conversation. And Jeffrey Holder said, no, you need to have her do a solo. She should be dancing to Salome and have, this big solo thing. And it got Hunt to thinking that, it's already been established in the movie that she's a mimic. If she sees someone play the piano, she can go right over and play the exact same thing. Well, he thought if she'd been to the ballet, she could immediately master being a ballerina. So they came up with this whole idea that she would break away from Julian and go into this ballet, which I thought was a much more dramatic sort of interruption when the creature comes in. Yes.
I wanted to ask about the casting of Tom Baker. Whenever I see that scene, it's really funny. Of course, he says the monster can't possibly stand up to all of us, and then and this is after he's invincible. And then when it's really loud on the ship, and the wind is howling.
Yes.
When he talks over all of that, I figured, well, yeah, you need someone with a great voice to pull that off.
It's interesting you mentioned that. Originally, they're actually escaping in the script. They're escaping England because they're sort of on the lam at this point. I mean, Polidori, Frankenstein, and they were originally getting on an American ship going to America. And Ernest Borgnine had been cast as the captain of the ship, as an American captain. And with all of his maritime credits, why not? And they ended up, there's an excise scene from the script that you'll see. I actually have it in the magazine. of a scene between what would have been Borgnine and Polidori on the ship, when the Coast Guard is chasing after the ship, and they're trying to get just beyond the border of the waters where the Coast Guard has no jurisdiction. And it's a really fun sequence. But as they were shooting, they were also editing the picture, and they realized that it was already becoming too long, and so they ended up trimming a number of things, and they cut the role of the ship captain down tremendously. And they decided, when I guess Ernest Borgnine felt like, what am I coming to England for now? It's kind of a thankless role at this point. And or they may have just gone to him and said, we're going to renegotiate your deal because we only need you for a couple days now, and maybe he's passed at that point. I'm not sure exactly what happened, but they had originally talked to Tom Baker about potentially playing the creature. But they ultimately decided that, frankly, and I'm not telling tales out of school because Tom Baker talks about this in his own memoir, he just wasn't good looking enough. They needed somebody a little more beautiful to make those scenes work. And so the consolation prize, because they kind of led him down the garden path for a long time and having meetings with him, was to give him the role of the ship captain. And I don't think he's attempting an American accent. I think they just decided, it doesn't matter now. The things that we've cut out, they're not necessarily going to America. It doesn't have to be an American captain. I think he just plays it with his British accent. He was cast as Doctor Who just literally weeks after they finished production, and then he played Doctor Who for years after that. Before then, he played Rasputin and Nicholas and Alexandra, and had been nominated, nominated for a Golden Globe for that, and I think he won an BAFTA or something. But he was known as a very hoity-toity sort of Shakespearean actor, and then had stage credits and everything. And we think of him now, obviously, as Doctor Who, a little more of a comic book sort of image. But back then, he had a very, very sort of prestige image. Anybody else? And you don't have to stay on subject if you want to talk to Bruce about the DC animated universe or anything else. Feel free.
I want to know about Julian's epic hairstyle.
That helmet?
That was the saddest part of watching that clip, of course, because things have changed over the years. No, as I remember, it was mine. I shortly after, or was it before? No, it was before. It was in '72, at the height of the Troubles. I did a play at the Lyric Theatre in Belfast. As I said, I went to rehearsals and went to the theatre with soldiers, going from one shop front to another, and I'm looking around going, what the hell am I doing here? It was not a good time to be in Belfast, but I had shoulder length hair at that time, so I looked at it again and I went, that probably was. They may have given me one of those extensions, I guess you call them, but no, I had long fair hair, yeah. It was mine, and it's all gone.
Great. Who else? Anybody? Going once? Going twice? Sold. All right. Before we move on to the signing area, we have 3 prizes to give away. That's what all your tickets for. Anybody not have tickets?
We don't.
We got.